Religious clerics hijacked the concept of natural human charity, and for centuries, through their constant repetition of silly little lies, have led the ordinary believers, people no different from you and me, to act like submissive and uncritical sheep. The cynical, self-interested clerics have been responsible for millions of simple folk believing for their whole lives that it's only the religious that can be charitable. And by this gross misrepresentation of humanity as a whole, the peddlers of so-called good works have been able to use charity as the attractive paint to cover their whitened sepulchres, filled with dried-up bones and the echoing hollowness of moral bankruptcy. Giving selflessly, without desire for return, I suppose, could be argued, is the core of the concept of charity. Let's say there's a group of people alive today who genuinely believe that the only way to give selflessly, and you're not going to believe this easily, by the way, is if they were to wear a particular type of undergarment. These people believe that nobody else in the whole world except those few enlightened souls who know this secret can ever be truly selfless in the charity that they may or may not give to other creatures. In light of their certainty that they are the only ones who can be truly charitable, do you personally think that you can still do charitable deeds and give selflessly without these miraculous undergarments? Of course you answered yes. Well, replace the concept of undergarments with the concept of the Quran or the Bible, and anyone could ask why either of these items is necessary in order to be charitable. You might still want to wriggle out of this one and say that your book is a special book, a holy book, but I want to shake the foundations of your assumption that somehow your version of religion and charity in general go hand in hand. Religion is self-confessed selfishness of the highest order. Religious people do charitable deeds because they're told by their favorite religious book and by their clerics that they will get a reward in heaven. You do good things and avoid doing bad things for the eternal reward or to avoid the eternal damnation. Religious charity is done for the self, not for others. Muslim men do virtuous deeds so that they can have sex with virgins in heaven. It's in the Quran. Christians do virtuous deeds so that they can go to be in heaven where they shall be made whole. It's in the Bible. I repeat, these are selfish motives. They are not selfless. When a Muslim says he or she is doing something for Allah, he or she is doing it for him or herself. Their own enlightened self-interest may be, but certainly not selfless. Certainly not the pure form of charity that the religious clerics like them to passively believe, since, whether Christian or Muslim, he or she is the one who will benefit in the long run, in the land flowing with milk and honey, while the other miserable wretches burn in hell for eternity. But what might come as a rather bigger surprise to you, if you've never really thought about it in this way before, is that it's the godless, miserable wretches in your midst who don't believe at all in a heaven or hell, who are the only ones who are utterly selfless in the charity that they give to their fellow creatures. And do you want to know why? Well, it's because they're prepared to give charity to their fellow creatures, knowing full well that they are caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, they know that they themselves will simply cease to exist when they die, and that all the charitable sacrifices that they've made will bring no eternal reward whatsoever. And on the other, that they would still face eternal torture no matter how charitable their faithless hearts had been during their earthly passage, if their faithlessness was somewhat misplaced, and if there actually was some cosmically pathological creator awaiting them outside the pearly gates. There is no God. There is no heaven. There is no hell. There are those who dispense charity for an eternal reward, and those who just dispense charity. If you're a person of religious faith, and you genuinely give charity without any hope of heaven or fear of hell, then good on you. You're one of us. Just a nice ordinary person who senses the fragility of human existence, and considers that it's incumbent on us all to give to others what we would like to receive from them. You could say that it's really only common sense and good manners when we find ourselves all living together on a vulnerable little blue dot in the middle of the cold vastness of space. Don't be misled. Charity has been hijacked by the religious clerics, and it doesn't need religion for it to exist. Charity begins at home, and the home of charity, well, that's the human heart. And my question to you is this. If Christianity and Islam, for example, had taught that doing acts of charity meant that the receiver of the charity went to heaven, but the giver of the charity was cut off from God and was thrown into the eternal torments of hell, do you think that these religions would still be around in the 21st century?